Hey YouTube, I am going to be making stuffed mushrooms, and if you're like me and you don't even like mushrooms, try these because I don't eat mushrooms and I will actually eat these. They're so good. We are going to be working out of the recipe from Julia Child's Mastering the Art of French Cooking, but lots of butter, cheese, a little bit of onions, mushroom, some tarragon and parsley, some madeira, more butter. There's 3 different times that you use butter for this. Swiss cheese, breadcrumbs. We have the mushrooms here that are already separated into caps and stems because you will be using the stems to make the filling, which is kind of what I love the filling. I don't care, I'm not big on the whole mushroom, but the filling, I can just eat the filling with a spoon. So let's get to the stove. We're gonna start sauteing these caps. I have more butter. There's lots of butter. We have more butter and some olive oil on the stove warming up, and we're going to saute the onion and mushroom stems in that and get the filling started. So let's head over to the stove and I will show you how this all comes together. And it's not the simplest process, but it is so worth it. If you're going to make stuffed mushrooms, don't make anything but these. They're so good. And they're awesome for Thanksgiving. We always serve them for our Christmas party and they are a huge hit, and you can make them ahead to the point where they're ready to go in the oven. You can make them a few days ahead. I usually make them about 2 days ahead. Get them all assembled, get them in a tray, ready to bake, and I'll just cover them with saran wrap and just write the temp and how much time is needed on them so that when we take them out of the fridge, we know what to do with them. But you can do them ahead. So if you have a party coming, you can make these ahead, and then on the day of, you just throw them in the oven and pull them out and they're magical. So let's go get started on the assembly, shall we? So the first thing I've done is taken the mushroom caps and prep your mushrooms, get them clean before you do this. Take the stems out and I run them through the tiniest food processor in the world so I don't have to mince them because this did it for me. The trick with these is that you're going to put them in a paper towel and squeeze out any of the moisture that is in the mushrooms before you saute them in butter and oil, just to get any of that excess liquid out of the mushrooms. So I just put them right on a paper towel and just fold it over, or you can put another towel on top of it and just press down and press out all of the moisture. You can see that that's pulling moisture out into the towel. So I'll do that. And you can do this on a larger scale. Like when I make these for Thanksgiving, I'll use, I don't know, a 5 or 6 batch of this recipe. So this is just a single recipe. I'm just making it for us to have as a little goodie for tonight. So there are those squeezed out, and you can kind of see how much moisture's come out onto that towel, right? So set those aside. And we've got our the mushroom caps and some melted butter. And we're just going to brush the whole cap with the melted butter and put it in a tray right here. And that's what they're going to bake in, but you want to have these all brushed with butter. So I just went ahead and switched these to a little bit smaller tray because this is not even 12 mushrooms, there are 10. So we're gonna do that and just sprinkle them with just a little bit of salt and pepper, crack a little bit of pepper, however much salt and pepper you like. And we've got the butter and oil heating up, and we've got just a little bit of onion. We're gonna saute for just a few minutes. We're not browning the onion. We're just doing about 3 minutes. We don't want it to brown, we just want it to cook. And while those are sauteing, I've gone ahead and turned on the oven to preheat to 375 degrees. After the 3 minutes is up, go ahead and add in the diced up mushroom stems. And we're gonna turn the heat up a little and saute those for 6 to 8 minutes until the pieces start to separate. And those are starting to brown and separate. And we're going to just add the madeira. And we're gonna cook that down until it's almost entirely evaporated off. And that's about how I like it. So we're gonna take that off the heat. And I let it cool down just a little bit, but this is where you're going to start adding in the breadcrumbs and the cheese. And so I like this to cool down or you're gonna end up with a melted cheese blob. So let that off the heat, cool down a bit. I've got that off the heat, and it's just a little bit because this is just a single little batch. So this is gonna show you what a single box of mushrooms would make, not 5 times the recipe. You've got breadcrumbs we're gonna add into the mushroom and onion and melted butter and olive oil mix. We're gonna put that in. We're gonna put in some dried tarragon, and quite a bit of dried parsley from the garden, just because I really like parsley. You've got quite a bit of Parmesan cheese going in, and this is just store-bought cheese, but if you have, of course, if you have fresh Parmesan that you want to grate and put in there, you could. And we're just gonna make that into a nice kind of crumbly, dry mix. So you can see how that's looking. Almost like a breadcrumby cheese with a little bit of mushroom. I mean, if you don't like mushrooms, this is this is for you. I love this mix. And we put in just a little bit of grated Swiss cheese and just toss that in. So you've got kind of a nice even mix. And that looks really dry, but you're going to add cream. This is not a low calorie, low fat recipe, but it's delicious. And then we've got cream here, and you're just gonna add enough cream to make that as moist as you kind of like. Probably about 2 to 3 tablespoons of cream. And you could, I mean, you could probably go lighter. You could probably try to make this a lighter recipe, but I mean, it's the holidays. I don't go light at the holidays. So I'm gonna keep adding some cream because I know how, you know, kind of the consistency that I want this to feel. And it's still, you want it, you know, fairly moist. I don't want it to be a dry filling. But if you do this too quickly, especially like what I do when I make a big batch of this and you've got a big pile of hot mushrooms and onions cooked, you know, right off the stove, you do not want those cheeses to melt, or this will just be a big gooey glob of melted cheese and mushroom, and it tastes great, but it makes it a little harder to work with. So you want it just moist enough to be a filling. You can kind of see where that's at. And we're gonna put that inside the mushroom caps and put it in the oven at 375. And this is where you can taste it and check the seasoning, add any more salt and pepper if you like, but I know this is how I like it. And I just take a regular kitchen teaspoon because I don't use a lot of fancy tools if I can avoid it, and just put that right in the mushroom caps. And if you're doing this for a crowd, you could do, you know, you could wear gloves, but I'm just making this for us for dinner tonight, and I know it's fine. So again, your choice. And I try and just kind of fill the initial bunch with just this kind of this pack it down in, so that's down inside the cap. And then of course any that's left, you can kind of keep piling it on and make them a little bit more heaped up if you like. But I'll usually heap them up where they, you know, they've got a good amount kind of up on top. And it definitely makes a nice amount of filling. You're not gonna be short of filling. In fact, I usually have some left, which is nice because like I said, I don't really like the caps, but I love, love, love this filling because it's just mostly just butter and cheese. Who doesn't like that? So I will actually just make, you know, have a little sample of this just by itself as a little snack. I just have the filling. And of course the nice big wider mushrooms would be nice to fill with this because they have a bigger opening where you can put all of that lovely filling. And you can see some of them could use a little more. So I'm just gonna go back and just, especially these nice big ones, kind of pile it on there. These aren't super time consuming, especially if you're not making like what I do when I make this times, like I usually make this recipe times about 5. I'll usually do about a 5 batch of these or whatever. I mean, we end up with about 40 to 50 mushrooms to serve at the party that we do. And if you're following that, I'll put a link up here to the playlist that's like how to cater a big party for family. We have a big party for about 60 people, family members that come at Christmas, and it's so much fun. And I do all this finger food for everyone. So I just filled those, and that's what's left. Just enough for me to snack on. And the next thing you're gonna do, because we're not done adding yummy layers, we have melted butter and more shredded Swiss, and we're just gonna put a pinch of Swiss on top of each one of those. And you could, I guess you could try a different cheese. You could do this with Jack or mozzarella, probably, if you don't love Swiss. But the Madeira and the Swiss and the parsley and tarragon with this is just, it's a really, really nice combo. But of course, I mean, it's Julia Child. Like if you've ever made anything from her recipes, I've pretty much never had a recipe of hers that wasn't the, you know, everything that is her recipe, it's like, that's the best of that I've ever tasted. Like these are the best stuffed mushrooms I've ever tasted. And I'm gonna go ahead and use up all the cheese because I love cheese and there's no such thing as too much cheese ever. Let me know in the comments if you are a non-mushroom lover who would also probably eat these. Like these are so good, seriously. Like I don't like mushrooms and I'll eat these. The last thing you're gonna do before these go in the oven is just take a little bit of more melted butter and just drizzle the top with even more melted butter. Just, you know, it says to just add a few drops. So we're just kind of doing that. We'll get these in the oven I'll show you what they look like. And this, so right to this point is where you could do these ahead and just cover this with a sheet of saran wrap, wrap it up, and then I just take a Sharpie and write on the saran wrap, you know, 375 times 15 minutes, just so if I'm making these later or if someone's helping me, we know what to do with it. And these go in the upper third of a 375-degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes. And once the cheese is kind of melted and everything looks golden and toasty, you just pull those out, and I usually serve these right out of the oven at the party, so we'll put these out hot. And that is how I make Julia Child's amazing stuffed mushrooms. I hope this inspires you to try these at your next gathering for guests, and especially for people who don't like mushrooms. You may find that you've just found a new family favorite. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.